Okay. Solve the following. You may use any method of your choice. So first of all, that x squared makes it a quadratic. The 20x, not the square root method. So that gives me either factoring or quadratic formula. Both of those we set equal to 0. So there's my first step. And then I look at it and I think whether I can factor it or not. So quadratic 20x, so factor a quadratic formula, it factors easily. So that's the route I want to go. Pull out a 5x, which will leave me a 4x minus 4. So there was just a common factor, but that's factoring. And so even if you can just do a common factor, that's good. Then it's factored and equal to 0, so I can split it up. And then beating this to death, because I have students that'll give me this answer wrong all the time. Divide both sides by 5. And 0 divided by 5 is 0. And x equals 4. And there's that guy. Again, solve the following. You may use any method you want. For some reason, I'm going to have to change this problem in the future. We essentially already did that problem. So we'll change in the future, but we'll go ahead and do the problem. I don't know when the future will be they'll actually change it. I probably won't remember to change this problem, but let's pretend we haven't already solved this problem. When I look at it, the x squared tells me it's a quadratic. It's only x squared and numbers, so square root. Method. And for that, you get the x squared alone. So 3x squared equals 24. Divide both sides by 3. X squared equals 8. Then I take the square root of both sides, including that plus or minus. Forgetting the plus or minus is going to get you, you're going to lose half the points because you're leaving off half of the answers. The reason why it works, square roots and squares are opposite operations, so they cancel, leaving me just the x. And that 8 simplifies. Square root of 4 is 2, leaving behind the square root of 2. Okay, next problem. Solve the following. You may use any method of your choice. And there will be no points. Totally wrong. Will lose. Is that lose or lost? Loose. That's loose. Will lose all points. Anyone that says this, x plus 2 equals 5, x plus 4 equals 5. That's totally wrong. You will lose all the points. You can't do that. That is wrong. Because quote-unquote splitting up is only allowed when the equation is factored and equal to 0. We got it factored, but it's not equal to 0. So you just absolutely can't do that. So instead, we're going to FOIL that first. And so I'm going to have x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8 equals 5. I've got some like terms there. I'm going to combine those. And so I've got x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 5. And then again, my thought process over here, the x squared makes it a quadratic, not the square root method. Because of the 6x. So quadratic formula. Or factoring. So those guys, both of those require me to set it equal to 0. So again, just thought process. You're not writing that down. That's just your thought process. So setting it equal to 0. I'll subtract that 5, and I get x squared plus 6x plus 3 equals 0. And then you look at it for just a little bit, determining whether you can factor it or not. It doesn't factor. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. And so in this case, a is 1, b is 6, c is 3. And I go into the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to have negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3 all over 2 times 1. And then we just start simplifying that. So that's negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 12 all over 2. I am not going to cancel anything yet. That's negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 24 all over 2. And still nothing cancels. You don't cancel a fraction unless you can cancel from all terms in the fraction. And so yes, I can divide. I can divide negative 6 by 2. I can divide 2 by 2. But this is the square root of 24. It's not 24. It's the square root of 24. And the square root of 24 is not divisible easily by 2. So I am not ready to do any canceling, any division. Keep working with that square root. 24 is 4 times 6. Remember, I need two numbers that multiply to be 24, one of which I know the square root of. And then the square root of 4 can come out as 2. And now I can divide by 2. Now everyone is divisible by 2. And so being very specific, as I divide everybody by 2, I'd get negative 3 plus or minus 1 square root of 6 over 1. Dividing everybody by 2, but I do not need to write denominators of 1. I do not need to write coefficients of 1. So negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 6. And there's that one. So we got one last problem to do in this section, but it's an application, and so I don't want to rush through it. And I only have 6 minutes left on this video, so we'll end this video and go on to the next one. I upload my videos to YouTube first, then to Folio, and for YouTube you can only go up to 15 minutes. So we'll end this video and go on to the next video and finish the section.